Hare Krishna, everybody, welcome. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I apologize for forgetting about the yesterday's class. It was just accident. So let's revise what we did last class. Last class was 14. Most of the 14th chapter titled King Chitraketu's Lamentation we did, and in that chapter we heard the history of Vritasura's previous life. We heard how he was a King Chitraketu who had 10 million wives, but somehow he had no fortune of having a son. All the wives were barren. And then once upon a time, King Angira Muni visited Chitraketu, who received him very well. And Angira asked him, "Is everything well? You look a little bit depressed. Your pale face reflects some anxiety." And Chitraketu said, "You know everything. All these opulences and wealth I have and 10 million queens, they do not please me because I don't have a son. Please help me get the son." And then Angira Muni, he agreed to perform a sacrifice. And then after the sacrifice, the remnants of the offering was given to the first queen. And Angira Muni, he told Chitraketu that his son will be cause of both joy and sorrow, without elaborating much about it, and left. So Chitraketu, he understood it will be, he thought it will not be something really bad. He thought the son will just be disobedient. That's the cause of the sorrow, but because he will get the son, it will be cause of great joy. So he didn't mind it. And eventually, Kritadyuti, his first queen, gave a birth to a son, and parents' affection, the king's and queen's affection for the son increased very much. They became very, very attached. At the same time, other queens, other 9,999,000 queens, they burn in envy, condemning themselves because they were neglected by the king, because naturally he developed greater affection and attachment to the Kritadyuti. So at the end, the queens couldn't bear anymore, and they decided to poison the child. And obviously, when the child was given the poison, he died in a dream, and everyone in a palace cried there very much. Even the queens who administered the poison, they also pretended to cry. Chitraketu arrived there, and he was completely grief-stricken, and he fell on the floor, fainted, unconscious. And Kritadyuti, his first queen, the mother, she condemned the Providence as very inexperienced and unintelligent for having cut bonds of affection. So this is what happens when some unpredicted misfortune strikes. People, blame Providence or blame God. And then out of great despair, she called, "Oh, my dear son, please don't go to Yamaraj." And in this way, she was lamenting, completely losing her senses. And at that crucial moment, when everybody was completely immersed in the ocean of grief, Narada Muni and Gira Muni arrived. So last time we read the chapter summary of the 15th chapter. So I'll just quickly share the screen now. So we read the summary. 1 second. The saints Narada and Angira is tracking Chitraketu. This is the title of the 15th chapter. So we'll go straight to the shloka 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Navatavam Devi Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamati Nashta Presh Badish Nityam Bhagavata Seva Bhagavati Uttama Shloki Bhaktir Bhavati Nishtaki Om Agyanati Vedandasya Gyananjana Shlaka Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Shri Sukha Uvacha Uchatur Mrita Kopante Patitam Mrita Kopamam Shoka Vibhutam Rajanam Bodhayantav Saduktibe. Shivadeva Goswami said, while King Chitraketu, overcome by lamentation, lay like a dead body at the side of the dead body of his son, the two great sages, Narada and Angira, instructed him about spiritual consciousness as follows. So in this chapter, the two sages deliver the king from suffering, and Narada gives him instructions on a mantra. So when people are very much grief-stricken, when bad things happen in life, they become more receptive, more open to instructions. Knowing this, Narada and Angira, they arrived at the right moment. If they arrived previously, Chitraketu, he wouldn't be receptive to the instructions because he had a strong material desire. He desired a son. And then if you try to preach to such a person, he will not be able to hear. But in this particular moment, when he had this misfortune striking him, he became open. So maybe we can also draw a parallel in our own lives or lives of people we know, how they became devotees. And we can find that pattern that when things do not go well, we tend to turn to God. When everything is very nice and we enjoy very much in the material world, nobody really cares much about God. That's why in Svarga, in heavenly planets, it's very difficult to become a devotee because everything is very pleasurable and enjoying there. But here on earth, we experience suffering also, and that's why we ask ourselves why I'm suffering and what is the meaning of the human life. So it's actually much better position for self-realization here, where we can see the dukkha, where we can see the misery. There is a story of Lord Buddha or young Gautama, Siddhartha, who was living in a palace all his childhood, and everything was very nice and pleasant. Only when he went out of the palace and he saw somebody dying, then he realized that the world is full of suffering, and then he embarked on the path of self-realization. So we need to experience and see the suffering in order to be inspired to search for God and to search the way out of this world. Okay, next one. Koyam syat tava rajendra bhavan yam anushochati tvam chasya katama srishto pure dhanim atha param. O king, what relationship does the dead body for which you lament have with you? And what relationship do you have with him? You may say that you are now related as father and son, but do you think this relationship existed before? Does it truly exist now? Will it continue in the future? Purport. The instructions given by Narada and Angira Muni are the true spiritual instructions for the illusioned, conditioned soul. This world is temporary, but because of our previous karma, we come here and accept bodies, creating temporary relationships in terms of society, friendship, love, nationality, and community, which are all finished at death. These temporary relationships did not exist in the past, nor will they exist in the future. Therefore, at the present moment, the so-called relationships are illusions. So all these material relationships, they are based on identification with the body, and this is the beginning mistake we make. We think that we are the body, and those who are related to our body, that they are our own relatives and friends. But this is all very temporary, because very soon we'll be in the next body, and all the relationships that are based on the previous body, they will cease to exist. And then the next body will form again new relationship, which will also end with the end of that body. So that's why these relationships are called illusions, because they are not relationships of the real self, not relationship of the soul. These are relationships of the body that we misidentify with. Let's see what Vishnu Chakra Thakur says. Who is he in relation to you? He is my son. That is true. But what you are in relation to him? I am the father. In the previous birth, or now, or in next birth, who is who? Those who had the relation with the sons in the previous birth at death were separated from those sons, and in the present life, they are sons of that person or another person. In another life, they became wives, enemies, or friends, or that or another person. So we now have a wife, mother, and father, and sons and daughters. But we had so many mothers and fathers and wives in so many previous lifetimes. Where are they now? We don't know. So why to be so much illusion by the present relationships? Shloka 3. I think Srila Prabhupada once tells a story about the rich man who was so much attached to his wealth, but then he died, and in the next life he was born in a poor man's house next to that rich man's house, and then his sons from the previous birth, they beat him with the shoes when he came to their house, although that was their father from previous birth, but they couldn't recognize him, so they beat him with the shoes. So this is the reality of the material world. Those who we consider very near and dear today, tomorrow, they can become our enemies. Also, those who fought in a wars like Second World War, sometimes it's said that Germans who very much hated Russians, in the next life they became Russians, and Russians who were dying on the battlefield thinking about Germans, they became Germans in the next life. So you just exchange positions. So it's all very temporary and illusory. Yatha prayanti samyanti srotu vigina bhaluka samyujyante viyujyante tatha kalena dehina. O king, as small particles of sand sometimes come together and are sometimes separated due to the force of the waves, the living entities who have accepted material bodies sometimes come together and are sometimes separated by the force of time. The misunderstanding of the conditioned soul is the bodily concept of life. The body is material, but within the body is the soul. This is spiritual understanding. Unfortunately, one who is in ignorance, under the spell of material illusion, accepts the body to be the self. He cannot understand that the body is matter. Like small particles of sand, bodies come together and are separated by the force of time, and people falsely lament for unification and separation. Unless one knows this, there is no question of happiness. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, this is the first instruction given by the Lord. Dehinosmin yatha dehe homaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyate. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Our real interest lies in understanding this simple fact. Then we can make further spiritual progress. Otherwise, if we remain in the bodily conception of life, our miserable material existence will continue forever. Political adjustments, social welfare work, medical assistance, and other programs we have manufactured for peace and happiness will never endure. We shall have to undergo the sufferings of material life one after another. Therefore, material life is said to be dukkhalayam shashvatam. It is a reservoir of miserable conditions. So Vishwanath Thakur says the meaning is explained just as particles of sand join and separate by the force of waves, jivas meet and separate by the force of time. Meaning that they don't have any permanent relationship. It's just like a passengers on a train. You see them for a short time, you engage in small talks, and the next station they go out and you never meet again. This is actually the sad fact of life. But because we are so much attached, we cannot accept it. And then when the death of somebody near and dear comes, we lament very much. Of course, tear is one. The reality is that we feel a lot of sadness because of attachment, which is material. So should we have no affectionate feelings towards those we are surrounded with? It's not that we should be cold also like a stone or iceberg, but we should try to develop somehow to spiritualize our relationships, somehow to try to relate as the souls, the servants of Krishna. And that's only possible when one is Krishna conscious and then he can put Krishna in the center. Then that relationship becomes spiritualized. And you can say permanent in one sense. Yatha dhanasu vaidhana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhutani bhuteshu chodithanisha mayaya. When seeds are sown in the ground, they sometimes grow into plants and sometimes do not. Sometimes the ground is not fertile and the sowing of seeds is unproductive. Similarly, sometimes a prospective father, being impelled by the potency of the Supreme Lord, can beget a child, but sometimes conception does not take place. Therefore, one should not lament over the artificial relationship of parenthood, which is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Chitraketu was actually not destined to get a son. Therefore, although he married hundreds and thousands of wives, all of them proved barren and he could not beget even one child. When Angira Rishi came to see the king requested the great sage to enable him to have at least one son. Because of the blessing of Angira Rishi, a child was sent by the grace of Maya, but the child was not to live for long. Therefore, in the beginning, Angira Rishi told the king that he would beget a child who would cause jubilation and lamentation. This is interesting point, that he was not destined to get a son. That means it was not in his karma, would they say, in his chart. He had, no progeny. Somehow, in his previous life, he didn't deserve to have a son. And now to change that karma, it really required some heavy intervention, which was again Mike intervention. It was not Krishna giving him a son. It says here he was sent by the grace of Maya. Nowadays, I know some devotee couples who tried a lot to have a child, and then it just didn't work. It didn't work. At the end, they try this in vitro fertilization, and sometimes even that doesn't work. And the modern medicine gives so many options now that were not maybe available before. And if nothing else, then they adopt. But it's kind of artificial way of trying to change one's karma. Or another way to try to change is by yagya. But because it's artificial, mechanical way of trying to get into your karmic account some things that you didn't really earn in your previous life, it will not last long, or if it lasts, it will cause some negative effect. Like in the case of Chitraketu, he got a son, but the son just didn't live long. I know some devotee couples who also tried long, and then the child was born, but then the child was sick. He had a Down syndrome or some other heavy disease. Because because of their desire, they pushed hard, although they were not destined. And then the negative result together with the child was there also. So one should be a little bit, sensitive and not try to go outside of his karmic account and get the things that he is not destined to have. Otherwise, it will cause also some lamentation. Your desire might be fulfilled, but not exactly in the way you wanted it. Continuing purport, King Chitraketu was not destined to get a child by providence or the will of the Supreme. Just as a sterile grain cannot produce more grain, a sterile person by the will of the Supreme Lord cannot beget a child. Sometimes a child is born even to an impotent father and sterile mother, and sometimes a potent father and fertile mother are childless. Indeed, sometimes a child is born despite contraceptive methods, and therefore the parents kill the child in the womb. In the present age, killing children in the womb has become a common practice. Why? When contraceptive methods are taken, why don't they act? Why is a child sometimes produced so that the father and mother have to kill it in the womb? We must conclude that our arrangement of so-called scientific knowledge cannot determine what will take place. What is enacted actually depends on the supreme will. Sometimes, even if the parents, take contraceptives, the child is born, or sometimes they want to abort it, and there are cases when the child survived the abortion, actually. It's all possible depending on the destiny and the supreme will. It is but the supreme will that we are situated in certain conditions in terms of family, community, and personality. These are all arrangements of the Supreme Lord according to our desires under the spell of Maya, illusion. In devotional life, therefore, one should not desire anything, since everything depends on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anya Blashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dinavritam Anukulyena Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Ruttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. One should act only to develop Krishna consciousness. For everything else, one should fully depend upon the Supreme Person. We should not create plans that will ultimately make us frustrated. This is a nice conclusion by Prabhupada. We should not create plans that will ultimately make us frustrated, meaning trying to get something you are not destined to get. Like a poor man hoping to become a rich and working hard and making so many schemes, but the end, if he is not destined to get rich, he will stay a poor man. Or if he's not destined to have a child, unless he adopts some very, very artificial method, he will not get a child. But if he gets it artificially, going outside of his karma, it will have a negative effect. And it applies to anything, not only to having a child. Anytime you want to go outside of your karmic boundary, you cannot escape the power of Maya. Eventually, you won't succeed. Of course, there are special cases. If somebody is a devotee, and for some special reason, Krishna enables him to do something that is not in his karma, then he can do it, being specially empowered. But otherwise, in normal circumstances, nobody can get more than he's destined to have. I'll skip this, go to the next one. Vayam chatvam chaye cheme tulya kalash charachara janma mrityor yatha paschat pran naivam aduna pebo. O king, both you and we, your advisors, wives, and ministers, as well as everything moving and not moving throughout the entire cosmos at this time, are in the temporary situation. Before our birth, this situation did not exist, and after our death, it will exist no longer. Therefore, our situation now is temporary, although it is not false. The Maya philosophers say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman, the living being, is factual, but his present bodily situation is false. According to Vaishnava philosophy, however, the present situation is not false but temporary. It's like a dream. A dream does not exist before one falls asleep, nor does it continue after one awakens. The period for dreaming exists only between these two, and therefore it is false in the sense that it is impermanent. Similarly, the entire material creation, including our own creation and those of others, is impermanent. We do not lament for the situation in a dream before the dream takes place or after it is over. And so during the dream or during a dreamlike state, one should not accept it as factual and lament about it. This is real knowledge. There's some dreams that are called lucid dreams. Have you heard of lucid dreams? Lucid dreaming means that the person who is dreaming in a dream, he becomes aware that he is dreaming. So, he does many fantastic things like flies in the air, but he knows he's dreaming. It's called lucid dreaming. There is even a practice how one can actually learn a lucid dreaming to become aware in a dream that he is just dreaming. But similarly, our whole material life is a dream, but we should become lucid, means we should awake and understand that this is not our real life, that this is not real existence, that there is another reality of the soul on the spiritual platform where our real eternal life is. And then we will not take our dreaming like material life very seriously, and we will not be disturbed very much when things go wrong, and we will not rejoice very much when in a dream we get $1 million. In a dream you dream, oh, you got some big prize or inheritance, and you're so happy. But if you are aware that you are dreaming, you won't be so excited, because after you wake up, there is no $1 million. Again, you are the same man with the same amount of money you had before you fell asleep. Not only is a dead son lamentable, wife, ministers, and relatives all presently existing are to be lamented. We are all situated here now at one time. Tulya Kala. Before our birth and after our death, we do not exist. Even now, we do not exist. Things which do not exist in all three phases of time cannot be called substantial. That is the meaning. Pious persons do not consider insubstantial, impermanent objects. Though the objects are real, they are regarded as unreal because they are temporary. Bhutair bhutani bhutesha srijat yavati hanti cha atmasrishtair asvatantrair anapeksho pibhalavat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master and Proprietor of everything, is certainly not interested in the temporary cosmic manifestation. Nonetheless, just as a boy at the beach creates something in which he is not interested, the Lord, keeping everything under his control, causes creation, maintenance, and annihilation. He creates by engaging a father to beget a son. He maintains by engaging a government or king to see to the public's welfare, and he annihilates through agents for killing, such as snakes. The agents for creation, maintenance, and annihilation have no independent potency, but because of the spell of the illusory energy, one thinks himself the creator, maintainer, and annihilator. Purport: no one can independently create, maintain, annihilate. Bhagavad Gita says, Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ankara vimudatma kartaham ittimanyate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of the three modes of material nature, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by nature. Prakriti, material nature, as directed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, induces all living entities to create, maintain, or annihilate according to the modes of nature, but the living entity, without knowledge of the Supreme Person and his agent, the material energy, thinks that he is the doer. In fact, he is not at all the doer. As an agent of the Supreme Doer, the Supreme Lord, one should abide by the Lord's orders. The present chaotic conditions of the world are due to the ignorance of leaders who forget that they have been appointed to act by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because they have been appointed by the Lord, their duty is to consult the Lord and act accordingly. The book for consultation is Bhagavad Gita, in which the Supreme Lord gives directions. Therefore, those who are engaged in creation, maintenance, and annihilation should consult the Supreme Person who has appointed them and should act accordingly. Then everyone will be satisfied and there will be no disturbances. It says here that just as a boy at the beach creates something in which he is not interested, so why is he not? He is not interested because he knows it's like a dream. It's a temporary. You make something at the beach, and then next morning, with the high tide, everything is wiped off. It will not last very long. So that one who has a spiritual vision is not very much interested because he knows tomorrow this will not exist anymore. So why should I invest my energy and my emotions and everything into temporary creations which will not exist very soon?
Krishna Prabhu, can I ask a question?
Yes, please, Prabhu.
It's related broadly to some of the points we read a little earlier, so I should have brought it up then, so apologies, but I just
No
thought
problem.
so you mentioned that progeny through IVF, etc., is not really appropriate for devotees, etc. Is that still the case if devotee parents are seeking to create devotee children and they've used whatever means? I mean, is that any different to getting boons from rishis for children in terms of how one creates a child? If the purpose is to create a devotee, would it still be inappropriate? Would karmic reactions still apply to devotee parents where their objective is to try and please Krishna through children, or is it? I'm just thinking your advice and feedback on that.
Yeah, I didn't say it's completely inappropriate. If somebody has the right motivation, and yeah, definitely devotee parents, they want devotee children. No devotees want their child to be non-devotee, but we cannot guarantee whether he will be devotee or non-devotee. It will depend on so many factors. And even if they get a child through this artificial means, you can say it's also if it's in their destiny, they will get it in this way. If it's in their karma, previously these options were not existed, but yagyas existed. So you cannot say just black and white whether it's appropriate or not appropriate. And of course, there is a Krishna factor also in the lives of devotees. So if one prays to the Lord, there's stories of devotees praying to Lord Jagannath, I think, for getting a son, or to Nrsimha there. And if the Lord gives the child, then it's not altering one's karma. It's a gift of the Lord. But when I was seeing this, I meant some karma kanda procedures for altering one's karma. So yagya is one such procedure where you actually try to, don't say bribe, but to placate, to please certain demigods, and eventually, of course, Lord Vishnu, in order to get something that you are not destined to get. But the devotee's attitude should be when he goes in front of the Lord, oh my dear Lord, if you want to give me, please give me. I'm attached. I would like to have it. You're honest. You're revealing your feelings to the Lord, but you leave decision to Him. If you think it is good for me, please give me a child or whatever you think. But if you think it's not good, I don't deserve it or whatever, then let it be. But if somebody is just completely determined, I want this, I want this, I want this, and he pushes very hard for it, then he might get it, but he might be sorry for that later. So that's why the final decision should be always, in the case of devotees, left to the Lord. You express your desire to the Lord, and then if he desires so, you will get it through normal way or through IVF or whatever way is there. But I wouldn't go for this karma kanda yagyas that alter the karma. It's basically taking mingling with the karma, taking things in your own hands. You're not actually leaving it to the Lord. I know some devotees who, for getting married, for example, getting a good wife, they did some yagyas. They paid some smarter brahmanas in South India, and they got married, and everything was nice for a few years, and then after that became a hell, and then divorce, and the children, with some children were there, but it was completely on a big mess, because they did this karmic karma kanda thing without really approaching the Lord. They try to manipulate their karma. So this is my point. The devotee should not try to
Thank you. Wonderful explanation. Just another philosophical point. I mean, as devotees, I mean, we understand that the Lord's will is the Lord's will. One, no matter what one does, you can't actually change that. I mean, you can't actually change your karma, can you? I mean, that would be, and that would blow out the philosophy. I mean, the karma reaction, you're going to have to suffer. You're going to have to suffer. You can't alter that. I mean, you might be able to do a 3 or 4% manipulation by these things, but ultimately the Lord's will override whatever it is you're doing. If your karmic reaction is to go through something, you're going to have to go through it, regardless of what yagyas you may or may not do. Is that not correct?
Yeah, you cannot, by this artificial karma kanda procedures, you cannot destroy karma. But what they're doing, actually, they're temporarily changing it, meaning postponing it. If you're supposed to get some reaction, you're postponing it for later. You are moving that particular karma to another area of life. I know somebody, for example, somebody was supposed to get sick, but no, he did some yagya to avoid that sickness, or some other karma kanda measure, astrological remedy he did, and he didn't get sick, but then his child or wife got sick. I heard such cases, or his marriage fell apart. So he just moved that particular suffering he was supposed to experience in terms of his own body. He moved it to another field, or field of relationship, or to his near relative. Basically, karma is not destroyed by this method. It just moved from here to there. Either it's moved from one area of life to another area of life, or it is moved from present to the future. So you don't get sick now, but you get sick, when you are, after 20 years or something. Or it's like a moving this, like allopathic medicine, which doesn't cure the disease, but it can just suppress the symptoms. But then these same symptoms can come out on another part of the body, of another organ. So similarly, this artificial manipulation of karma, you don't destroy it. The only way to destroy karma is through bhakti. But even if one is a devotee, prarabdha karma, the manifested karma of this present body, generally the Lord doesn't interfere with it. Only in special cases, Lord can change the prarabdha, already manifested karma. And that's why when we cut ourselves, devotee thinks, oh, this is just a token. I could have cut off my finger, because for devotee, the reactions are diminished. But it's not necessarily that Lord remove all our prarabdha karma. You already got a body, and this body has to go through its destined course. Only in very rare cases For some special reasons, the Lord might alter our karma, but generally it doesn't happen. And generally, if we try to mingle with it, we just make more and more disturbance. We don't really we don't really destroy that karma. That's my understanding. Is that okay, Prabhu?
Perfect, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Okay, let us continue. 7. Just let me see how far we're supposed to go today. A whole chapter, yeah. Okay. Dehina dehino rajan. Deha deho bijate. Bijad eva yatha bijam. Dehyarta eva shashvataha. Translation. As from one seed, another seed is generated. O king, so from one body, the body of the father, to another body, the body of the mother, a third body is generated, the body of a son. As the elements of the material body are eternal, the living entity who appears through these material elements is also eternal. From Bhagavad Gita, we understand that there are two energies, namely superior energy and inferior energy. Inferior energy consists of the 5 gross and 3 subtle material elements. The living entity who represents the superior energy appears in different types of bodies to these elements by the manipulation of supervision of the material energy. Actually, both the material and spiritual energies, matter and spirit, exist eternally as potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The potent entity is the Supreme Person. Since the spiritual energy, the living being, who is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, desires to enjoy this material world, the Lord gives him a chance to accept different types of material bodies and enjoy or suffer in different material conditions. Factually, the spiritual energy, the living entity who desires to enjoy material things, is manipulated by the Supreme Lord. The so-called father and mother have nothing to do with the living entity. As a result of his own choice and karma, the living being takes different bodies through the agency of so-called fathers and mothers. What you said is true. I, a father created by the Lord, produced a son who is now dead, therefore I lament. The two sages respond, by the body of the father, the body of the son is born from the body of a mother, just as seed is born from another seed, since the body of the son which you produce is present before you now. Why do you lament? This is the intention of the statement. But I am lamenting because the jiva is no longer present. They replied, the jiva is eternal. It is not produced by you. Thus you have no relationship at all with it. And this is a good point. The body is there, so why are you lamenting? Because the soul is not anymore there. But you actually attached to the soul, to the body. The soul you couldn't even see. Only now you're aware that the soul is not present anymore. Deha dehi vibhagoyam aviveka kritha pura jati vyakti vibhagoyam yatha vastu nikalpita. Divisions of generalization and specification, such as nationality and individuality, are the imaginations of persons who are not advanced in knowledge. Actually, there are two energies, material and spiritual. Both of them are ever existing because they are emanations from the eternal truth, the Supreme Lord. Because the individual soul, the individual living entity, has desire to act in forgetfulness of his original identity since time immemorial, he is accepting different positions in material bodies and being designated according to many divisions of nationality, community, society, species, and so on. Divisions. So all these divisions are imaginations of those who have no spiritual vision. Shishuka Uvacha Evam Ashvasito Raja Chitraketur Vijoktibi Vimrija Panina Vaktram Adnimlanam Abhashata. Shishuka Goswami continued, thus enlightened by the instructions of Narada and Angira, King Chitraketu became hopeful with knowledge. Wiping his shriveled face with his hand, the king began to speak. Sri Rajo Vacha Ka Yovam Jana Sampanau Mahistaucha Mahiyasam Avadutina Veshina Gudaviha Samagato. King Chitraketu said, you both come here dressed like Avadutas, liberated persons, just to cover your identities. But I see that of all men, you're the most elevated in awareness. You know everything as it is, therefore you're the greatest of all great personalities. So two sages had dressed as mendicants to hide their identity. So meaning that Angira and Narada Muni, they didn't come flying from the sky with a veena. They came just dressed as the normal avadutas in those days who were just wandering around. And they spoke those words. And by these words, King Chitraketu could understand that they're very, very advanced, spiritually exalted personalities. There was also Jada Bharata, who was roaming around like a dumb man. And only when he starts speaking, Kigrahugana couldn't understand that that this is a spiritually advanced person. Charanti Hyavanu Kamam Brahmana Bhagavat Priya Madrisham Gramya Bodhinam Bodhayan Mata Lingina. Brahmanas who are exalted to the position of Vaishnavas, the most dear servants of Krishna, sometimes dress like madmen, just to benefit materialists like us, who are always attached to sense gratification and just to dissipate our ignorance. These Vaishnavas wander on the surface of the globe according to their desire. Kumaru Narada Ribur Angira Devalosita Apantaratama Vyaso Markandeyo Tagottama Vasishto Bhagavan Rama Kapilo Badarayane Durvasa Yagya Valkyascha Jatu Karnas Tataruni Romashash Chavano Datta Asuri Sapatanjali Rishir Veda Shiro Dhamyo Muni Pancha Shikastata Hiranya Nabha Kaushalya Shutta Deva Ritadvaja Ete Parecha Sideshas Charanti Jnana Hetava. O great souls, I have heard that among the great and perfect persons born in the service of the earth to instruct knowledge to people covered by ignorance, as Sanat Kumara, Narada Ribu, Angira Devala Asita, Apantaratama Vyasadev, Markandeya Gautama Vasishta Bhagavan Parashurama, Kapila Shukadev Durvasa, Yagyavalka, Jatukarna, and Aruni. Others are Romasha Chavana, Dattatreya, Asuri, Patanjali, the great sage Domya, is like the head of the Vedas, the sage Panchashika, Hiranyana Ba, Kaushalya, Shrutadev, and Ritadvaj. You must certainly be among them. The word Jnana Hetava is very significant because great personalities like those listed in these verses wander on the surface of the globe, not to mislead the populace, but to distribute real knowledge. Without this knowledge, human life is wasted. The human form of life is meant for realization of one's relationship with the Krishna or God. One who lacks this knowledge is categorized among the animals. The Lord himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Namam dushkritino muda prapadanti naradama maya pahrita jnana asuram bhava mashrita. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Ignorance is the bodily conception of life. Yasyatma buddhi kunapetri dhatuke sa eva gokaraha. Practically everyone throughout the universe, especially on this planet Bhuloka, thinks there is no separate existence of the body and soul, and therefore no need of self-realization. But that is not the fact. Therefore, all the Brahmanas listed here, being devotees, travel all over the world to awaken Krishna consciousness in the hearts of such foolish materialists. The acharyas mentioned in these verses are described in the Mahabharata. The word Panchashika is also important. One who is liberated from the conceptions of Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya, and who is perfectly aware of the subtle coverings of the soul, is called Panchashika. According to the statement of Mahabharata, an acharya named Panchashika took birth in the family of Maharaj Janaka, the ruler of Mithila. The Sankhya philosophers accept Panchashikacharya as one of them. Real knowledge pertains to the living entity dwelling within the body. Unfortunately, because of ignorance, the living entity identifies himself with the body and therefore feels pleasure and pain. So this was the list of the rishis, the sages of Vedic times who have a very, very long lifespan, who live for many yugas, and who travel the world, not only the present planet we are on, but other places in the universe. And in previous ages, they used to visit, the palace, for example, of Maharaj Yudhishthir was, frequently visited by such sages like Narada. But nowadays, because the situation is so degraded, they don't come. The demigods also do not come. It was said that previously, in previous ages, the demigods would also frequently visit the earth, attend the yagyas. But now, why would they come when the population, the citizens are so degraded that they would not appreciate their presence? They would not appreciate their instructions. So they don't come. But luckily, by the grace of the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Acharya still comes. So we had Srila Prabhupada coming. And by his grace, now devotees distribute his books all over the world. And people still get opportunity for spiritual advancement, although the sages do not come directly. Tasmad yuvam gramya pashur. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
So here it is said that one who is liberated from the conceptions of Annamaya.
Prabhu, can you speak a little closer to the mic because your voice is very big?
Sorry, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Now it's better, yeah.
Yeah, it said in this sentence, one who is liberated from the conceptions of Annamaya, Pranmaya, Manomaya, etc. Now these are stages of progress, right?
Yes.
I mean, Anandmaya is the highest stage. Correct?
Yeah, the Anandamaya is the highest stage. That actually one is supposed to be liberated at stage.
Yeah, so what I want to ask is, why should he be liberated from the concept of Anandamaya at least? Because that's the highest stage.
I think that Anandamaya here would refer to one who is Brahma Bhuta self-realized, so he knows completely well that he's not a body. He's liberated, but he still hasn't established the relationship of personal relationship with the Lord. Although that would cause, that would be Vijnana Maya. Vijnana Maya is a realization.
Something like a Jnani? Vijnana Maya is something like a Jnani?
Yeah, Vijnana Maya would be Pranamaya, Manomaya, the philosophers,
Yeah, they're on the
intellectual.
mental platform, right?
Yeah, mental platform. Then Vijnana Maya would be a Jnani.
Jnani, yeah.
But looks like that, according to this, that Jnani is still not completely, self-realized. And then when that Jnani is further advances, he comes to the stage of Anandamaya. And then above the stage of Anandamaya is the one who establishes personal relationship with the Lord and serves the Lord. We would need again to go to see exactly definitions of Anandamaya stage. But according to what is Prabhupada saying here, there is something more, and that more can be only personal service of the Lord in the spiritual world. Although I thought that is already called Anandamaya, but looks like
I got that impression that Ananda is in the state of bliss.
Yeah, Anandamaya is state of bliss, and which comes from the service of the Lord. But again, there are different gradations even of the bliss. The bliss of Vaikuntha is less than bliss of Goloka, and then that bliss is increasing progressively through different rasas. So somewhere, we have to draw the line. What is meant by this Anandamaya? Actually, we need to define. But in present context, Prabhupada defines it, takes it as the something that is still not full perfection. Yeah, I cannot say more. So yeah, it looks like that this is not the final perfection. At least in this sentence, Prabhupada doesn't put it as that. Tasmad yuvam gramya pashor mama muda dhya prabhu ande thamasi magnasya Jnanadeepa Udiryatham. Because you are great personalities, you can give me real knowledge. I'm foolish as a village animal, like a pig or dog, because I'm merged in the darkness of ignorance. Therefore, please ignite the torch of knowledge to save me. This is the way to receive knowledge. One must submit oneself at the lotus feet of great personalities who can actually deliver transcendental knowledge. It is therefore said, Tasmat Gurum Prapadyata Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. One who is inquisitive to understand the highest goal and benefit of life must approach a bona fide spiritual master and surrender unto him. Only one who is actually eager to receive knowledge, to eradicate the darkness of ignorance, is eligible to approach a guru or spiritual master. The guru should not be approached for material benefits. One should not approach a guru just to cure some disease or receive some miraculous benefit. This is not the way to approach the guru. Tavigyanartham. One should approach the guru to understand the transcendental science of spiritual life. Unfortunately, in this age of Kali, there are many bogus gurus who display magic to their disciples, and many foolish disciples want to see such magic for material benefits. These disciples are not interested in pursuing spiritual life to save themselves from the darkness of ignorance. It is said, Om Jnanatimrandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master Open my eyes with a torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance unto him. This gives the definition of the Guru. Everyone is the darkest of ignorance. Therefore, everyone needs to be enlightened with transcendental knowledge. One who enlightens his disciples and saves him from rotting in the darkness of ignorance in this material world is a true Guru. So as Srila Prabhupada says, there are many, many bogus gurus, much more bogus gurus than the bona fide gurus. And because people want to be cheated, these gurus, bogus gurus, have many, many bogus followers who want some material benefit. And once in a while, it comes to the public knowledge that guru was bogus. Like recently, I saw about that Bikram, the founder of Bikram Yoga. Now they did a kind of documentary about him, and it came out that actually he abused many women. He was teaching Hatha Yoga, but at the same time exploiting these women who were following him, wanting to learn so-called yoga. But still, people are so foolish that even if a bogus guru is exposed, they still continue to follow him. Sai Baba, he was exposed many times in his, tricks and magic. Still, there's so many people who follow Sai Baba and so many others. So it's just a Kali Yuga business, guru business, followers and money. Shri Angira Vacha, Aham te putra kamasya, putra dosma Angira Nripa, Isha Brahma Sutta Sakshan, Narado Bhagavan Rishihi. Angira said, my dear king, when you desire to have a son, I approach you. Indeed, I am the same Angira Rishi who gave you this son. As for this Rishi, he is the great sage Narada, the direct son of Lord Brahma. Yeah, just imagine that good fortune that Angira Muni and Narada Muni personally come to visit you and to give you instructions. It's such persons are rarely to be seen. Itan tvam putra shokina magnam tamasi dustare atad artam anusmritya mahapurusha gocharam anugrahaya bhavatha praptha avam iha prabho brahmanyo bhagavad bhakto nava saditum arhase. So the Lord, He's in the heart of all living entities, and when the soul is sincere, He sends saintly person, or He makes arrangement for that soul to meet the saintly person. So this is how actually it works. By the grace of the Lord, we meet the Guru, and then by the grace of Guru, we make spiritual advancement. My dear King, you are an advanced devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To be absorbed in lamentation for the loss of something material is unsuitable for a person like you. Therefore, we have both come to relieve you from this false lamentation, which is due to your being merged in the darkness of ignorance. For those who advance in spiritual knowledge, to be affected by material loss and gain is not at all desirable. So King Chitraketu, he was not an ordinary karmi, he was a devotee. And Prabhupada says here, advanced devotee, that means that he had Bhagavad Bhakta. So he was a devotee, but not, completely self-realized, but he was a sincere devotee who had some obstacles. So he was going, I guess, through anartha nivritti. And by the grace of the Lord, he met Narada and Angira to give him shiksha. how to make further advancement. Several words in this verse are very important. The word Mahapurusha refers to the advanced devotees and also to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Maha means the Supreme and Purusha means person. One who always engages in the service of the Supreme Lord is called Mahapurushika. Shukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parishika sometimes addressed as Mahapurushika. A devotee should always aspire to engage in the service of advanced devotees. As Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung, Tandera Charana Sevi Bhakti Sanivas Janame Janame Hoy E Abhilash. A devotee should always aspire to live in the association of the advanced devotees and engage in the service of the Lord through the Parampara system. One should serve the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to the instructions of the great Goswami of Vrindavan. This is called Tandare Charana Sevi. While serving the lotus feet of the Goswamis, one should live in the association of devotees, Bhakti Sanivas. This is the business of a devotee. A devotee should not aspire for material profit or lament for material loss. When Angira Rishi and Narada saw that Maharaj Chitraketu, an advanced devotee, had fallen in the darkness of ignorance and was lamenting for the material body of his son, by their causeless mercy they came to advise him so that he could be saved from this ignorance. Another significant word is Brahmanya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is sometimes addressed by the prayer Namo Brahmanya Devaya, which offers obeisance unto the Lord because he is served by the devotees. Therefore, this verse states Brahmanyo Bhagavat Bhakto Navasaditu Marhasi. This is a symptom of advanced devotee, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. For a devotee, an advanced self-realized soul, there is no cause for material jubilation or lamentation. He is always transcendental to conditional life. You can see and think of the Lord's devotees and great sages, Mahapurusha Gocharam. Because he served the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, he is called Brahmanya Bhagavat Bhakta. Actually, however, he was not a devotee at all. Now, this is a little confusing that he was not a devotee at all. I don't really know what Vishnu Chakra Thakur means by this. The first time I read it, he served the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. Maybe it means that he did not himself engage in sadhana bhakti, but because he was serving the Vaishnavas, then he was, and Brahmanas, then he is called devotee. Because serving the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas is devotional service. It appears a little bit contradictory to Prabhupada translation and purport, which state that he was an advanced devotee, but definitely he could not have been very advanced because he fell in such a lamentable state. He lamented so much, it means he was very much attached. He still had material desires for son. So this is question mark here. According to Vishnu Chakra Thakur, he was basically just something that we would call a friend of devotee who was very favorable to devotees, who served devotees, but didn't practice himself. We would need to see more commentaries. commentators on this, what they say. Tadaiva te param jnanam dadhami griham agatha gyatvanya biniveshamte putram eva dadamyaham. When I first came to your home, I could have given you the supreme transcendental knowledge. But when I saw that your mind was absorbed in material things, I gave you only a son who caused your jubilation and lamentation. The Dhammi should be Adasyam. I would have given. The second, the Dhammi should be Adadham. I gave a son. Tenses can be interchanged according to the rule. Tinam Tino Bhavanti. Okay, this is some technical explanation. But whatever is the case, definitely Chitraketu had big Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti to deserve to meet Angira and Narada Muni, because you cannot meet them without having this Sukriti that is favorable for Bhakti. There are different types of Sukriti. There is a Sukriti favorable for Bhukti, for enjoyment, Bhukti Unmukhi Sukriti, and Mukti Unmukhi Sukriti. Sukriti that is favorable for Jnana and for impersonal liberation. But because he served the devotees, he collected big bhakti sukriti that is favorable for devotional service, and that's why he was able to meet the pure devotees and get their mercy and instructions, and through that he became himself very advanced devotee, pure devotee. Aduna putrinam tapo bhava bhuyate evan dhara griharayo vidaishvarya sampada shabdadhayascha vishayash chala rajya vibhutaya mahirajyam balankosho britya matya suhrijanaha sarvapi shura sene me shtokamoha bayartida Gandharva Nagara Prakya Swapna Maya Manorata. My dear king, now you are actually experiencing the misery of a person who has sons and daughters. O king, owner of the state of Shurasen, one's wife, his house, the opulence of his kingdom, and his various other opulences and objects of sense perception are all the same in that they are temporary. One's kingdom, military power, treasury, servants, ministers, friends, and relatives, all causes of fear, illusion, lamentation, and distress. They are like a Gandharva Nagara, a non-existent palace that one imagines to exist in the forest. Because they are impermanent, they are no better than illusions, dreams, and mental concoctions. This verse describes the entanglement of material existence. In a material existence, the living entity possesses many things: material body, children, wife, and so on. Dehapatya kalatradishu. One may think that these will give him protection, but that is impossible. In spite of all these possessions, the spirit soul has to give up his present situation and accept another. The next situation may be unfavorable, but even if it is favorable, one must give it up and again accept another body. In this way, one's tribulation and material existence continues. A sane man should be perfectly aware that these things will never be able to give him happiness. One must be situated in his spiritual identity and eternally serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a devotee. Angira Rishi and Narada Muni gave this instruction to Maharaj Chitraketu. It has been said that wife and other objects, because of being temporary, are not real, and because of appearing and disappearing, a cause of suffering. Besides these things, other things also, which are causes of lamentation, illusion, fear, and pain, are false. One perceives that dream objects are false when waking from a dream. Objects which appear through dreams, magic, or imagination are false, like a Gandharva city. Since these all objects of material attachments, they are temporary. That's why when the Lord is especially favorable to his devotee and he sees that they are obstacle, he takes them away. So this is why it is explained that devotees are generally not very materially prosperous, because Lord wants them to make progress, and if they're too much materially opulent, they'll be very much attached and it will be very difficult to make a progress. On the other hand, you have devotees of other demigods like Lord Shiva and Durga. For them, it's not a problem that they're opulent, because that's what they want and that's what their deities give them. But Krishna doesn't give material opulence. Only very rare special cases when devotee is completely above material attachment, like Sudama Brahman. But in the case of a regular sadhaka, the Lord gives just as much as needed. Because all this material opulence is in form of Janma, Aishwarya, Shukta, Shri, they're obstacles, as the Queen Kunti prays. Because one cannot really surrender to the Lord, address him with the sincere feelings, because he's intoxicated with his material opulences. Drishyamana vinartina na drishyante manobhavaha karmibir dhyatu nana karmani manaso bhavan. These visible objects like wife, children, and property are like dreams and mental concoctions. Actually, what we see has no permanent existence. It is sometimes seen and sometimes not. Only because of our past actions do we create such mental concoctions, and because of these concoctions we perform further activities. Everything material is a mental concoction because it is sometimes visible, sometimes not. At night, when we dream of tigers and snakes, they are not actually present, but we are afraid because we are affected by what we envision in our dreams. Everything material is like a dream because it actually has no permanent existence. So Srila Vishwacharya Thakur writes as follows in his commentary. As given in Sanskrit, at night one dreams of tigers and snakes, and while dreaming he actually sees them, but as soon as the dream is broken, they no longer exist. Similarly, the material world is a creation of our material concoctions. We have come to this material world to enjoy material resources, and by mental concoction we discover many, many objects of enjoyment because our minds are absorbed in material things. This is why we receive various bodies. According to our mental concoctions, we work in various ways, desiring various achievements. And by nature and the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Karmana Daiva Netrina, we get the advantages we desire. Thus we become more and more involved with material concoctions. This is the reason for our suffering in the material world. By one kind of activity we create another, and they are all products of our mental concoctions. Imaginary objects are seen without some real objects such as tiger or snake existing, but when the dream is over, they are not seen. So impermanent objects like vibe and false objects like dreams all arise from the mind, since they arise from desires in the mind. Actions also are composed of the mind because one meditates using his mind on objects because of his impressions of karma in order to carry out actions. Because the action is composed of mind, the objects attained is also made of the mind. So the karma, it said that the karma is actually lodged in one's mind as certain sanskaras, which push us to act in a certain way at a certain point of time in our life. When that karma fructifies, these sanskaras that are lodged in the mind, they make us act in a certain way. Sometimes maybe we were on some crossroad and we made one decision, although we had opportunity to make another decision, but we made one decision and our life went into a certain direction due to this decision. If we had made another decision, for example, we married somebody else, our life would look completely different. But because it was not in our karma, we made this particular decision. So through the mind, the karma works. And one way how one can overcome karma is to raise to the spiritual platform above the mental platform, above the mind platform, that one is not anymore controlled by his urges of the mind, by sanskaras that are in his mind, that he stays equiposed. So there are different methods for it, and Jnana Yoga is also aiming to this, and other types of yoga. And of course, the bhakti is the highest process, but they all have to take to help the practitioner to take control of their mind in order to overcome karma, because karma works through the mind of a conditioned soul. So control of the mind or going beyond the mind is necessary on all spiritual paths. Ayam hi dehino deho dravya jnana kriyatmaka dehino vivida klesha santapa krit udahrita. The living entity in the bodily conception of life is absorbed in the body, which is a combination of the physical elements, the five senses for gathering knowledge, the five senses of action, along with the mind. To the mind, the living entity suffers three kinds of tribulations: adibhotika, adidaivika, and adhyatmika. Therefore, this body is source of all miseries. In the fifth canto, while instructing his sons, Rishabhadev said, Asan api kleshad asadeha. The body, although temporary, is the cause of all miseries of material existence. As already discussed in the previous verse, the entire material creation is based on mental concoction. The mind sometimes induces us to think that if we purchase an automobile, we can enjoy the physical elements, such as earth, water, air, and fire combined in forms of iron, plastic, petrol, and so on. Working with the five material elements, Panchabhutas, as well as with our five knowledge-gathering senses, like the eyes, ears, and tongue, and our five active senses, like the hands and legs, we become involved in the material condition. Thus, we are subjected to the tribulations known as Adhyatmika, Adidaivika, and Adibhautika. The mind is the center because the mind creates all these things as soon as the material object is struck. However, the mind is affected and we suffer. For example, with the material elements, the working senses and the knowledge-gathering senses, we create a very nice car, and when the car is accidentally smashed in collision, the mind suffers. And through the mind, the living entity suffers. The fact is that the living entity, while concocting with the mind, creates the material condition. Because matter is destructible, through the material condition, the living entity suffers. Otherwise, the living entity is detached from all material conditions. When one comes to the Brahman platform, the platform of spiritual life, fully understanding that he is a spiritual soul, Aham Brahmasmi, he is no longer affected by lamentation and hankering. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na shochati na kamshati. One who is just tranquilly situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. Elsewhere in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Mamaivamsho jiva loki jiva bhuta sanatana manashashta indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned lives, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. The living entity is actually part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is unaffected by material conditions, but because the mind is affected, the senses are affected, and the living entity struggles for existence within this world. So the point is being made here that through the mind we experience the pleasure and the suffering as well. If it wouldn't be for the mind, we wouldn't feel any suffering. Even if the body is in uncomfortable position, if somebody is above the bodily platform and the mind platform, he doesn't suffer. He might feel that there is a pain, but he doesn't suffer because he's not identified with the body. So the whole purpose of the spiritual process is to disidentify oneself from the body and the mind, which is part of the subtle body. We suffer due to this false identification. Once we are completely awoke and established on the Brahma Bhuta platform, there is no more suffering, even if it happens that the body suffers. Prabhupada, at the end of his manifested lila, his body was very much emaciated and suffered, but he was completely above it. He was not really affected. Doesn't mean that he didn't feel any pain. He could feel, but he didn't, he was not suffering because of it. He could still speak the Bhagavatam purpose almost till the last day, which a normal person just couldn't do it. Somebody is completely eaten up by the pain of the body, he cannot think about anything else. And no, Prabhupada was beyond it. Tasmat svastena manasa vimrishya gatim atmana dvaite dhruvartha vishrambam tyajo pashramam avisha. Therefore, King Chitraketu carefully consider the position of the Atma. In other words, try to understand who you are, whether body, mind, or soul. Consider where you have come from, where you're going after giving up this body, and why you are under the control of material lamentation. Try to understand your real position in this way, and then you will be able to give up unnecessary attachment. You will also be able to give up the belief that this material world or anything not directly in touch with the service to Krishna is eternal. Thus you will obtain peace. The Krishna conscious movement is factually endeavoring to bring human society to a sober condition. Because of misdirected civilization, people are jumping materialistic life like cats and dogs, performing all sorts of abominable sinful actions and becoming increasingly entangled. The Krishna conscious movement includes self-realization because one is first directed by Lord Krishna to understand that one is not the body, but the owner of the body. When one understands the simple fact, he can direct himself toward the goal of life. Because people are not educated in terms of the goal of life, they're working like madmen and becoming more and more attached to the material atmosphere. The misguided man accepts material condition as everlasting. One must give up his faith in material things and give up attachment for them. Then one will be sober and peaceful. Shri Narada Vacha etam mantropanishadam paricha prato mama iham dharayan sapta ratrat drashta sankarshanam vibhu. The great sage Narada continued, my dear king, attentively receive from me a mantra which is most auspicious. After accepting it from me, in 7 nights you'll be able to see the Lord face to face. So here it's kind of obvious that Chitraketu, he engaged in sadhana, in spiritual practice, in chanting the mantra after he received it from Narada Muni, which was sort of initiation. And previously he didn't really practice sadhana, but he served the devotees, and that qualified him here for further advancement and receiving this mantra. And what is amazing that just in 7 nights he will achieve the darshan of the Lord. We might be chanting for so many years and still are very far away from the darshan of the Lord. So here Vishnu Thakur says, what is the eternal object? Please tell me what is it. Since Narada was a great devotee, at the suggestion of Angira, he then spoke, accept this Upanishad in the form of a mantra. So I guess the mantra he gave him is coming from some Upanishad. Yat pada moolam upasritya narendra purve Shrvadayo brahmam imam dvityam vistrijya sadyas tadiyam atulanadikam mahitvam prapurbavan aviparam nachirad upaiti. My dear king, in former days, Lord Shiva and other demigods took shelter of the lotus feet of Sankarshan. Thus they immediately got free from the illusions of duality and achieved unequal and unsurpassed glories in spiritual life, will very soon attain that very same position. Brahma means bewildering, Dvaitya means duality, Upaiti should be Upaishyati, you will attain, and thus ends this chapter. I think we are stopping here. Just let me check once more. Yeah, the next time we are supposed to end. Yeah, the start from the 16th chapter, and maybe we can just read the purport because we still have some time left. Yeah, we'll just take the summary and then we'll stop. And then I want to ask you also about the next class, because in the schedule says that that next week we are supposed to skip because it's on Monday and Javataka Maharaj Vyasa Puja, but I would prefer to have it, if not on Monday, then at least on Tuesday. But let's first just read this. So chapter summary, as related in this chapter, Chitraketu was able to talk with his dead son and hear from him the truth of life. When Chitraketu was appeased, the great sage Narada gave him a mantra, and by chanting this mantra, Chitraketu found shelter at the lotus feet of Sankarshan. The living entity is eternal. Thus he has neither birth nor death. Na hanate hanya mani sharire. According to the reactions of one's fruitive activities, one takes birth in various species of life among the birds, beasts, trees, human beings, and demigods, and so on. thus rotating through various bodies. For a certain period of time, one receives a particular type of a body as a son or father in a false relationship. All our relationships in this material world with friends, relatives, or enemies consist of duality, in which one feels happy and distressed on the basis of illusion. The living entity is actually a spiritual soul, who is a part and parcel of God and has nothing to do with the relationships in the world of duality. Therefore, Narada Muni advised Chitraketu not to lament for his so-called dead son. After hearing instructions from their dead child, Chitraketu and his wife could understand that all relationships in this material world are causes of misery. The queens who had administered poison to the son of Kritadyuti were very much ashamed. They atoned for the sinful act of killing a child and gave up their aspiration to have sons. Thereafter, Narada Muni chanted prayers to Narayan, who exists as Chaturvyuha, and instructed Chitraketu about the Supreme Lord, who creates, maintains, and annihilates everything, and who is the master of material nature. After instructing Chitraketu in this way, he returned to Brahmaloka. These instructions about the absolute truth are called Mahavidya. After being initiated by Narada Muni, King Chitraketu chanted the Mahavidya, and after 1 week, he attained the presence of Lord Sankarshan, who was surrounded by the four Kumaras. The Lord was nicely dressed in bluish garments with a helmet and ornaments of gold. His face appeared very happy. In the presence of Lord Sankarshan, Chitraketu offered his obeisances and began to offer prayers. In his prayers, Chitraketu said that millions of universes rest in the pores of Sankarshan, who is limitless, having no beginning and the end. The Lord is well known to devotees for his eternity. The difference between worshipping the Lord and worshipping the demigod is that the worshipper of the Lord also becomes eternal, whereas whatever benedictions one can get from the demigods are impermanent. Unless one becomes a devotee, one cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After Chitraketu finished his prayers, the unlimited Supreme Lord explained knowledge of himself to Chitraketu. So we'll stop here. Do you have any final comments? If not, we can just talk about, let me just stop share. So I was thinking to have a cloud, the schedule that was made long time ago by Vidwan Prabhu says that next Monday, 3rd of April, is His Holiness Jipataka Swami's Vyasa Puja festival. I would prefer to have a class, but if it's not on Monday, if somebody is busy on that days, we can have it on Tuesday. So what do you say? Would Monday or Tuesday would be okay for?
Tuesday is better, Prabhu.
Vyas Puja is on 1st.
Sorry, Prabhu, I couldn't hear. Can you say please again?
1st of April.
Oh, see, it's on the 1st of April, so the schedule is even wrong. So it doesn't affect us. Is it correct?
Yeah, I don't think this will affect us because
Okay,
the second is also free. So at the most there may be a program on 2nd, but third, to my knowledge, there's no program. So
again, then it's a third is just a normal day, then a Monday. Okay, then let's I'll then correct the schedule and then upload the correct schedule, and then again says on 24th of April boat festival. I think we should have it also even on that day, or just move it day further, because I would like to finish by end of May, since in June I might not be available. Okay, so we'll plan for next Monday. Thank you all very much. Vanchakalpatrubhascha kripasindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.